ISKCON founder Acharya Beauty founder Acharya Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, chapter number 18, titled Prithu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet. Text number 1. Maitra Vacha Itam Prithum Abhistuya Itam Prithum Abhistuya Rusa Praspuritadaram Rusa Praspuritadaram Punar Ahava Nirbhita Punar Ahava Nirbhita Samstabhyatmanam Atmana Samstabhyatmanam Atmana Maitra Vacha Itam Pritum Abhistuya Rusa Praspuritadaram Punar Ahava Nirbhita Samstabhyatmanam Atmana Maitra Vacha Itam Pritum Abhistuya Rusa Praspuritadaram Punarahava Nirbhita Samstabhyatmanam Atmana Word for word translation. Maitreya Vacha. The great saint Maitreya continued to speak. Itam, thus. Prithum, unto King Prithu. Abhistuya, after offering prayers. Rusa, in anger. Praspurita, trembling. Adharam, his lips. Punaha, again. Aha, she said. Avani, the planet Earth. Bhita, in fear. Samstabhya, after settling. Atmanam, the mind. Atmana, by the intelligence. Translation. The great saint Maitreya continued to address Vidura. My dear Vidura, at that time, after the planet Earth finished her prayers, King Prithu was still not pacified, and his lips trembled in great anger. Although the planet Earth was frightened, she made up her mind and began to speak as follows, in order to convince the king. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshulmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There's no purport. We'll continue on to the next text. Sani, text number 2. Sani yacha bibo manyum nibodha shravitam chame sarvata saram adate yatha madhu karo buddha. My dear Lord, please pacify your anger completely and hear patiently whatever I submit before you. Please turn your kind attention to this. I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places, just as a bumblebee collects honey from each and every flower. So in the previous chapter we saw the prayers or the appeal of Mother Earth to pacify the anger of Maharaj Prithu. So previously, before the appearance of Prithu Maharaj, we heard the story of King Vena. And because of his activities, Mother Earth, we heard how she had withdrawn all of her resources. And after King Vena's death, there was no ruler. So then all the thieves and the rogues, they started plundering and they started all their nefarious activities. So Mother Earth, seeing all this, she withdrew her resources. She wasn't giving out grains, and there wasn't any food production for the citizens. Even though Maharaj Prithu had appeared, still she was not giving forth produce for the citizens. So then naturally the citizens, they all went and appealed to Maharaj Prithu that, you're the ruler, you're supposed to take care of us. You're supposed to make sure that we're all fed and we're all happy and prosperous. So according to the Shastra, the king, he's like a father to all the citizens. And all the citizens, they look up to the king as if the king was their father. And the king from his side, he sees all of the citizens as if they're his own children. And with that consciousness, with that mood, he takes care of each and every one of the citizens. In Vedic times, if any citizen had any problem in their life, they could immediately come up to the king and to the king's assembly and openly express that, my dear sir, this is my problem, please help me, please fix it. And the king will immediately address the problem. So that was Vedic culture. So the king was very easily approachable, because again, the analogy given is that the king was just like a father for all the citizens. And the citizens, they were just like the children of the king. So if any child has any problem, he can immediately come up to his father and mother, right, and openly talk. He doesn't have to go on a waiting list. He doesn't have to think 100 times. No, any problem he has, he can immediately just go to the father and say, I have this problem, please help me. So that was the culture back then, during Vedic times. The relationship between the citizens and the king was so deep, actually. And there was mutual love and trust between the citizens and the king. The citizens, they used to look up to the king as if the king was their own father. And any problem they had, they could immediately come to the king's assembly hall and openly express. And the king, from his side, out of compassion, would solve any of the problems the citizens had. So that's what we saw in the previous chapter. The citizens, they come up to Maharaj Prithu and they express their concern that, no food is being produced, planet Earth, she's withholding all of her resources, please help. Then Maharaj Prithu, it's given that he thinks and he meditates and he contemplates why Mother Earth is not giving. And he thinks and he thinks and he thinks that, is there something we're doing wrong? Is there something the citizens are doing wrong? And after his careful thinking analysis, he comes to the conclusion that actually the citizens, they're doing everything nicely. I haven't done anything wrong. There's no reason why planet Earth shouldn't be producing food grains. Then he gets angry, and then he picks up his bow and arrow, and then he threatens Mother Earth that if you don't start producing food grains, I'm going to cut you into millions of pieces. And then Mother Earth comes in the form of a cow and appeals to Maharaj Prithu. So in the last chapter, we were seeing the appeal of Mother Earth to please, to pacify the anger of Prithu Maharaj. And she's offering different prayers. Now, start of this chapter, we hear Maitreya Rishi, he tells Vidura that after all of these prayers by Mother Earth personified, King Prithu, he is still not satisfied. His anger is still not pacified. And he's still angry. He's still trembling with anger, and he's still, about to release his arrows at Mother Earth. So now at the start of this chapter, we'll see the further continued prayers of Mother Earth personified, who is there in the form of a cow. So in text 2, Mother Earth is saying, she's further appealing, to Maharaj Prithu to calm him down. She's saying, please pacify your anger. And she gives an example. She says that I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places. Just as the bumblebee collects honey from each and every flower. So she's appealing to Prithu Maharaj by explaining to him that I know you're angry at me. I know that you think I'm like a criminal, I've done something wrong, and I'm supposed to be punished. But please consider this. Just hear what I have to say one last time before you release your arrows. And she gives the example that a learned person, he takes knowledge from any source, despite of what that source might be. Prabhupada, he gives the example that just like if there is gold in a filthy place, let's say in a garbage dump, someone notices some gold. Then although that gold is there in the garbage dump, one will still go, put aside the garbage, take that gold, sell it, get money and get rich. So Prabhupada said, just like although gold might be in a filthy place, one still ignores the filthy, the filth and still goes and picks up the gold. In the same way, Prabhupada says, when there is genuine knowledge or wisdom, one shouldn't see, one should ignore, the externals. And this is what Mother Earth is explaining to Prithu Maharaj. I know you're angry at me. I know that you think I'm a criminal. I've done something wrong. But just please hear me out for a few more minutes. Just like a learned man, if some natural or some true wisdom is coming, he will accept it, despite where it's coming from. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he gives the example that before he left India to come to the West, Prabhupada, to fulfill the order of his spiritual master to write books, Prabhupada was publishing. He himself was buying paper. He himself was writing articles for his Back to Godhead magazine. Then he used to himself go and print his magazines. Then he himself used to go out on the streets and distribute the literatures he himself has written and he himself has printed. So Prabhupada explains that one time he was out distributing. He was out on book distribution. So Prabhupada is the original book distributor. Prabhupada used to go in Delhi streets, in 40-degree heat. We think yesterday was hot. Delhi heat is much more worse. So Prabhupada used to go out on Sankirtan himself. And one time when Prabhupada was out, he's, in Delhi, in India, there'll be a lot of tea stalls, where people who crowd around, they'll chit-chat, they'll drink tea, coffee. So Prabhupada used to go to those places, and sell his magazines, ask for donation and sell. So one time, one of these persons who he met, he's just a random karmi, not a devotee, just a random materialist. And Prabhupada is trying to sell him a Back to Godhead magazine. And this person tells Prabhupada that, Swamiji, why are you printing and selling these magazines? You should instead write, print and distribute books. Magazines, newspapers, people they take, and in the same they read a little bit in one day, and then the next day they just throw it in the bin. It just lasts for one day. So the shelf life of magazines is very small. People, they deal with it very cheaply. Instead, you should write books. If you write books and you sell books, that book will stay in people's houses for many decades. And they will read, the children will read. That will be more substantial. So Prabhupada, he mentions when he heard this from this random materialist, when he heard this from a karmi, Prabhupada thought in his mind that actually this is Krishna speaking to me through the mouth of this materialist. Actually, this is my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisanta Saraswati Thakur, speaking to me, giving me this instruction through the mouth of this materialist. So this is the vision of a pure devotee. Whenever any real wisdom or true wisdom comes, he doesn't see the source, where exactly he overlooks. Or he might be a karmi, he might be this, that. If actual wisdom is coming, and it's in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, he accepts it. So it's not that he blindly accepts as advice or wisdom from everyone. But if any advice comes, if any wisdom comes from anywhere, it could be a materialist, it could be a karmi, but if the advice and wisdom is in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then he accepts it. Then he sees it that actually Krishna is teaching me through this person. He might be a karmi, he might be a meat eater, doesn't matter. What he's saying makes sense. What he's saying is according to Bhagavatam. What he's saying is according to what I've learned from sadhus and my spiritual master, so let me accept it. And the devotee, he thinks, actually this is Krishna teaching me through this person. So that's an example that Prabhupada gives from his own life. That he got this instruction from a karmi, but because that instruction or that advice was good, was in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, he accepted it. And that's what Mother Earth is appealing to Prithu Maharaj. That yes, according to your eyes, you think I'm a criminal. According to your eyes, you think I should be punished. But a learned man, when advice or wisdom is coming, and that advice or wisdom is good, he accepts it. Just like a bumblebee, it goes and collects honey from each and every flower. So similarly, a learned man, he sees good in everyone. So in the same way, please, before you attack me, please hear me out. I know you think I'm fallen, I know you think I'm a criminal, but just like a honeybee sees honey in each and every flower, he overlooks the different colors of the flowers, it overlooks the different shapes of the flowers. He doesn't judge the flower, but it goes to each and every flower and collects honey. In the same way, there is good in everyone, and there is some good in me also. Although you think I'm a criminal, so please just hold on, hear me out. Let me speak a bit more. Please hear me out before attacking me. So in this way, Mother Earth, she's putting forward a second appeal to Prithu Maharaj. So we should also be like this, following the footsteps of Prabhupada. As Prabhupada gives the example, if gold is in a filthy place, a learned man, he will still accept it. He will take out all the filth, go into the bin, take the gold and keep it for himself and become rich. So sometimes in life, the instructions or the advice we get that will help us a lot, sometimes it won't come from devotees. Sometimes it will come from Krishna will speak those instructions to us through the mouth of karmis. So we have to be open. And how to judge whether a particular advice or instruction we should accept or reject? It has to be in line, according to Acharyas, it has to be in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So if something is coming to us and it's in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, we should accept it. Regarding the analogy Prabhupada gives of how if one sees gold in a filthy place, one should accept it. There's one pastime I'm remembering. I heard from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. He was mentioning when he was, a young brahmachari, he was serving in New Vrindavan. And at that time, he met one devotee there on the farm. And naturally, they ask each other, how did you come to bhakti? How did you become a devotee? And Maharaj explains this devotee he was talking to, he had a very unique way of how he became a devotee. So as the story goes, Maharaj explains that this person, he was like a hippie before, and he just used to live on the streets. And something that this hippie really, really liked was watermelon. That was his favorite, and he would do anything just to get watermelon. So one day this hippie who just used to live on the streets, how we have the big garbage dump, on that side of our temple, the big green garbage dumps. So in the same way, one time he noticed in a big green garbage dump, full, like a Govardhan hill full of garbage, he saw there's one, big watermelon in that garbage dump. And then he was like, whoa, watermelon. And he couldn't help himself. He immediately jumped into that garbage. It was like a big garbage pile. And he jumped in, and then he was swimming in the, through the garbage bags to get to the watermelon, to enjoy his watermelon. So he's doing all this inside the big garbage dump. And as he's going to get the watermelon, he finds a book. And that book was Bhagavad Gita. He takes that Gita, he reads it, and he becomes a devotee. So if one finds gold in a filthy place, one should take it. So this is how this person become a devotee. Sometimes, we have this doubt that, okay, we sell books, but what if people, throw this book in the bin? There are many stories of people who found a Gita in a bin. They took it, they read it, and they became devotees. This is one example of that. So this is a very nice example that Mother Earth is giving to Prithu Maharaj. Please turn your kind attention to this. I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places. Just as a bumblebee collects honey from each and every flower. Prabhupada also used to give this example regarding the bumblebee. Prabhupada used to say, just like a bumblebee, you will go and collect nectar, or will go and collect honey from many different flowers. It won't be picky, You won't say that, I will only get honey from red roses. I won't get honey from gaberas or chrysanthemum or this or that, You will, without distinguishing, you will go to each and every flower. Despite the color of the flower, you will go and take little honey from all different flowers. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that this is the nature of a devotee. A devotee is just like a honeybee. He will always see good in each and every person. Not just devotees, but even non-devotees. Even in non-devotees, a devotee will find some good in them and take that. So this is the vision of a devotee. He will ignore the faults, he will ignore the shortcomings, and instead he will see the good in each and every person. And he will take that in within his heart. And my Guru Maharaj, he mentions that Krishna is there as Paramatma within our hearts. And when Krishna is Paramatma within our hearts, he notices us seeing the good in each and every person. Then Krishna, he becomes very pleased. And whatever good quality we see in a person, for example, we see a particular devotee is very selfless, doing a lot of selfless service. And we notice that. And in our minds, we appreciate, wow, this devotee, he or she is so selfless, letting go of all of his comforts, so much sacrifice he or she is doing for Krishna's service. So like this, we think in our mind and we appreciate. Then what happens, my Guru Maharaj explains, that the super soul within our hearts, he notices this and he becomes very happy. And then the super soul, my Guru Maharaj mentions that the super soul, he's not lazy. He's always active within our hearts. And when he notices us appreciating others' good qualities, then the super soul starts doing His work within our hearts, and that same quality we're appreciating in another person, the Super Soul will help us develop that same quality. So in this way, my Guru Maharaj mentions, we can advance in bhakti very quickly simply by appreciating the good qualities of others. Every time you notice a good quality of another person, then that same good quality we're appreciating, the Super Soul will help us develop that same quality. In fact, in Bhagavatam it's mentioned that if we notice someone else doing something good, we appreciate that and we offer some service to that person and assist that person in their service, then as a result of that, Krishna being pleased will give us 1/6 of all of their good qualities. That's there in Bhagavatam. So when we notice someone doing something good, we appreciate it and we serve that person, assist that person in their service. Then as a result of that, Krishna being pleased will give us 1/6 of all of their good qualities. So this is the lesson Prabhupada says we should learn from the bumblebee. The bumblebee collects honey from each and every flower. On the other hand, the opposite of this, Prabhupada says, is a crow or a fly. Prabhupada says we shouldn't be like a crow going from one can of, one pile of rubbish to another. Or a fly. The fly will just go after garbage. So Prabhupada says we should be like a bumblebee, not a fly. Or the other example Prabhupada gives is we should be like a swan. The swan will always swim in nice, clear, lakes. It will swim amongst the lotuses, lilies, very clean place. On the other side, you have crows. You'll never see a crow, in a nice, clear lake, You never see a crow, on top of a lotus flower. No, where do you find crows? Crows will always be, wherever there is an open garbage dump, the crow will always go there and pick out the garbage. So Prabhupada says we shouldn't be like crows or fruit flies, just going after garbage. What does it mean going after garbage? Prabhupada says that's prajalpa. Talking about others' bad qualities. Oh, this devotee, he did this. Or did you hear how that devotee sang today? He was so funny, like that. We talk and we tease other devotees. So that's all called prajalpa. So Prabhupada says when we talk like this, finding faults with other devotees, criticizing devotees, making fun of others, teasing, Prabhupada says when we're doing like this, we're actually acting like a crow, simply picking on or chewing garbage. So Prabhupada says this is not how devotees should act. Devotees should be like swans. Swans, they go into the nice, clean, clear lake and they put their beaks into nice lotus flowers. They don't put their beaks into garbage. One example my Guru Maharaj gives about crows. He was one time in India and he was like, I think, second floor of some building and there's a balcony and he's just there in the balcony, just from second floor, just looking from an apartment block. And then he sees a man, like in the same level. And this man, he has some phlegm, cough in his throat. So generally, when we have phlegm in our throat, we do like that and, get the phlegm or the cough and then we spit it out. So he watched this man. He did like that. And then he, got the phlegm, the cough into his mouth. And then he spat it out from the balcony of the building, just into the air. And my Guru Maharaj mentions, as he spat out that phlegm, from his mouth, immediately he saw one crow flying from the sky and catching that in midair and eating that right in front of his eyes. So my Guru Maharaj gives this example. This is what a crow is. That's why the Shastras give the example of crows. This is the nature of crows. They go after garbage. So if we as devotees, instead of seeing, speaking, and discussing about the good of others, if we instead see the bad faults, apparent so-called faults of others, and we discuss that, then according to Shastra, we're not any better than these crows, these low-class crows who eat all nonsense, eat all garbage. Okay, so that's text 2. We'll continue on. There's no purport. We'll continue on to text 3. Asmin loke atavamusmin muni bistatvadarshibhihi drista yoga prayuktascha pumsam shreya prasiddhaye. Translation. To benefit all human society, not only in this life, but in the next, the great seers and sages have prescribed various methods conducive to the prosperity of the people in general. Purport. Vedic civilization takes advantage of the perfect knowledge presented in the Vedas and presented by great sages and brahmanas for the benefit of human society. Vedic injunctions are known as Shruti, and the additional supplementary presentations of these principles are given by the great sages, are known as Smriti. They follow the principles of Vedic instruction. Human society should take advantage of the instructions from both Shruti and Smriti. If one wants to advance in spiritual life, he must take these instructions and follow the principles. So Prabhupada here, he is explaining how the characteristic of a real civilization is that they take instructions from the Shastras and they apply that in their lives. Prabhupada explains there's 2 types of Shastras. There's the Shruti and there's the Smriti. Shruti, that refers to the Vedas. We have the 4 Vedas, Upanishads. Smriti, that refers to the Puranas. We have the 18 Puranas and the Itihasas like Mahabharata, Ramayana. So that all comes under Smriti. So Prabhupada says both is equally important and one must take instruction from both the Shruti and the Smriti scriptures. And Prabhupada writes here, if one wants to advance in spiritual life, which we all want to do, what should we do? Prabhupada says we must take these instructions and follow the principles. So that's very important. Just simply reading and taking information is not enough. Prabhupada says we have to actually follow these instructions. If we look into the Bhagavad Gita, towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a chapter 16, Divine and Demoniac Qualities. What distinguishes a demon from a demigod, or what distinguishes a demon from a devotee? The answer is, the main difference between a demon and a devotee is, a devotee follows the Shastras, a demon doesn't follow the Shastra. That is the key difference between a devotee and a non-devotee, or between a devotee and a demon. So it's not that demons, they don't have any understanding of Shastra. They do know the Shastras, but they don't follow it. If you study Bhagavatam, all these big-time demons like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, it's not like they were, like full-on complete materialists or atheists. They had no understanding of Bhagavad Gita, Shastra. They were actually born in like Brahmana families. For example, Ravana, he was born in a Brahmana family, and he was actually a big Pandit. Ravana was a very big, learned scholar. He was born in a Brahmana family. He knew how to do yagna, he knew how to do homas, he knew how to chant mantras. He had memorized so many slokas, but still he is considered as a demon. Why? Because although he was such a big Pandit, although he was such a big priest, such a big Brahmana, he never followed the instructions of the Shastra. Shastra say, surrender unto Vishnu, serve him, worship him. Give your heart, mind and soul to Vishnu. But did Ravana follow that? No. He completely, although theoretically he had studied all of that in Gurukul, he never followed any of that. So that's why he's still considered as a demon. So what distinguishes a demon from a devotee is, a demon, he doesn't follow the Shastra. A devotee, he follows the Shastra. So we might be devotees, we might have these books in our homes, but if after reading these books, if we don't apply the philosophy that we're reading and we're hearing, then we're still keeping, some kind of demon, within our hearts. So what really distinguishes us as devotees is when we apply the philosophy. Simply knowing the philosophy in theory is not enough. According to Shastra, unless we do application, we're still considered as demons. For example, Ravana, as we're discussing, he was born in a Brahmana family. He was trained in how to do yagna. He knew all the Shastras, he knew all the mantras, but still he's considered as a demon because he never applied what the Shastras teach. Same thing with Hiranyakashipu. If you read 7th canto of Bhagavatam, there's a particular section where verse after verse, Hiranyakashipu will quote Shastra. When his brother, who is Hiranyakashipu's brother? Hiranyaksha. When Hiranyaksha, he gets killed by who? Varahadev. So at that time, Hiranyaksha, his brother's wife, she was lamenting. And Hiranyakashipu's mother, she was also lamenting. So to pacify his mother upon the death of his brother, and to pacify his sister-in-law, he starts speaking verse after verse of philosophy. And if you read those verses that Hiranyakashipu speaks, it's exactly in line with 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about body and soul, about karma, reincarnation. Like this, verse after verse, he's preaching to his mother and his sister-in-law that don't lament, we shouldn't lament for the body, this is the nature of this material world, we can't be here forever. Like this, he's just speaking philosophy after philosophy. So all these big-time demons we hear about in Bhagavatam, they are actually great learned scholars. They actually knew the Shastras. They had, their Bhakti Shastri degree, Bhakti Vaibhav degree. They knew so many slokas, so many mantras. But still they considered as demons. Why? Because they never did application. All this was simply theory. They never applied in their lives. Same thing with Kamsa. Another big demon, right? If you look, start of Krishna book or 10th canto, when Kamsa, he gets darshan of Durga Devi. When Vasudeva, he switched the babies, and Kamsa comes into a prison house. At that time, Kamsa, Yogamaya, she had, Vasudeva switched, right? Baby Krishna with Yogamaya from Mother Yasoda. So that time Kamsa, he comes to the prison, and immediately, so demoniac, he just picks up the baby just by one leg, and he's about to, pick that baby and just smash the baby on the stone slab that was there. But before he could do that, that baby flies into the sky. And then he gets darshan of Durga Devi. At that time, Kamsa is completely astonished, because Durga Devi is like one of Kamsa's, worshipful lords. Generally, Prabhupada explains, demons, they generally worship Durga Devi or Lord Shiva, because they very quickly give results, or they very quickly fulfill material desires. Prabhupada says, generally demons, they will worship Lord Shiva or Durga Devi. So when Kamsa, he sees Durga Devi, he becomes so astonished. It's like, wow, my sister Devaki, she's given birth to Durga Devi, who's my worshipable Lord, or my Istadev. How great must Devaki be, If she's the mother of my Istadev, then she must be also some great personality. And then Kamsa thinks, I caused so much inconvenience, distress to her. And then he starts lamenting. And then to pacify his sister and his brother-in-law, then you'll see Kamsa, again, speaking verse after verse of philosophy, which is completely, in line with 2nd chapter of Gita. Kamsa tells Devaki, and Vasudeva, that please don't be angry at me. It wasn't me, it was the will of providence. Due to the will of providence, destiny, we're all under the control of destiny. None of us are controllers. Due to the power of destiny, everything is happening. So it was the destiny of, of your children that they were supposed to be killed. And I was simply an instrument in the hands of destiny. So don't be angry at me. I'm just the instrument. The supreme destiny. He's the cause, of this. And according to the karma, then he starts speaking about karma. According to the karma of your children, they were supposed to get killed like this. So it's not me, I'm just the immediate cause. I'm not the ultimate cause. I'm not the root cause. So please don't be angry at me. Like this, he starts speaking philosophy. From there again we can see that this Kamsa, who we know as such a big ferocious demon, ruthless demon, heartless, so cold-hearted, who killed 6 babies straight after their birth. It's not like he was ignorant of the Shastras. He actually was very well versed in the Shastras. He knew Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all the philosophy he knew. Because all of these demons, they were born in like Brahmana families or Kshatriya families. And generally these Kshatriyas, Brahmanas, they would go to Gurukul. And in Gurukul they would study Shastra. So Hiranyakashipu, he was a big learned scholar in the Shastra. Kamsa, he was a big learned scholar in the Shastra. Who was the other one we gave? Ravana. He was also a big learned scholar in the Shastra. But still, all 3 of these guys, they are known as big demons. Why? Although they know the Shastras in theory, they don't live the Shastras in their lives. So we as devotees, if we only read the Shastras and we don't apply the Shastras in our lives, then we're also small demons, in disguise, technically speaking. So we have to do application. Simply theory is not enough. Right? So when we read these books, when we hear lectures, we get some information. After information, next step is we have to do application. If we don't do application, then that information will simply remain as information. And we'll be like small-time demons. So first comes information, then comes application. If we do application, then we will get realization. And after getting realization, then there will be transformation of our hearts, transformation of our lives. Then we will start to function as actual, real devotees of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, of Shri Shri Gaur Nitai. So first, by reading, hearing, we get information. Then we have to do application. Then we will get realization. After realization, then there will be transformation of our hearts, of our lives, of our activities, of our minds. And then we'll start functioning and acting as real devotees. Okay, let's continue with the purport. If one wants to advance in spiritual life, he must take these instructions and follow the principles. So again, application. We have to follow what the Shastras say. It's not enough just to simply read, but what we're reading, we should apply in our lives. Sometimes devotees, they ask this question, how should we read Prabhupada's books? One simple technique we can do is we read the verse, we read the purport, and every verse or purport, we can just try to pick out one lesson, what that Prabhupada is trying to give to us. Okay, in this purport, what is one main point Prabhupada is emphasizing on? So in every purport, Prabhupada will try to give at least one lesson. Some purports, there will be many lessons, 10 lessons, 15 lessons. But when we read Prabhupada's books, we can always try to find at least one point in each purport. What is the main theme of this purport? What is the main point Prabhupada is trying to explain in this purport? We take out that point. Then we contemplate, am I actually doing this? Okay, in this verse, purport, Prabhupada is talking about Vaishnava Prad, how one should be careful about Vaishnava Prad. Okay, so this is the main theme of this purport. Then we contemplate, then we go introspective, and then we ask ourselves, am I actually following this? Am I actually living this? Or am I being careless and not dealing with devotees nicely? So like this, we should contemplate in our mind and try to apply that lesson that Prabhupada is giving in that particular purport. So in this way, when we read, reading won't be so mechanical, and it will be actually very, very dynamic, because what we're reading is actually going to change our lives, going to change our lifestyles. So when we read, we try to see or meditate in a way that actually this is Prabhupada speaking to me through these purports, through these books, and we should see what is it that Prabhupada is trying to preach to me, what is it that Prabhupada is trying to tell me. Pick out that one point, and then we should try to apply that in our life. Ask ourselves, am I actually following this instruction? Yes? Okay, good. No? Okay, then I need to work on this. Prabhupada is saying I should be like this. Okay, let me work on this. Let me try to become like this. Then we can pray to Radha Gopinath. Prabhupada is saying I should do like this, but I'm not doing like this. Please help me bridge the gap. Please help me become like this. This is what Prabhupada is instructing. Then Radha Gopinath or Gaur Nitai will help us to become or to fulfill whatever instructions Prabhupada is giving in the purport. If one wants to advance in spiritual life, he must take these instructions and follow the principles. in Bhakti Rasamitra Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami says that if one poses himself as advanced in spiritual life but does not refer to the Shrutis and Smritis, he is simply a disturbance in society. So this verse Prabhupada is talking about is a famous verse from Bhakti Rasamitra Sindhu. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatriki Vidimbina Ekantiki Hare Bhakti Utpayedeva Kevalam. This verse explains that Shruti Smriti Puranadi, that if one performs bhakti or devotional service without regarding or without consulting the Shastras, the Shrutis, the Smritis, the Puranas and other Vedic scriptures, if one just does bhakti or devotional service whimsically, without taking instruction from the Shastras, then that so-called bhakti will simply create a disturbance in society. So bhakti should be according to Shastra. It should be according to the guidance of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. If we perform bhakti which is not in line of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then according to Rupa Goswami, that so-called bhakti will simply create a disturbance in society. For example, you take the example of driving a car, right? There are certain principles, protocols in how to properly drive a car, right? That's why before we get a license, we have to do a driving test, right? There's the theory and then there's the practical. And there'll be a certain instructor, he will check whether you're driving properly. If we don't drive according to the instructions of the driving manual, of the driving board or the government, and instead of driving on the left side of the road, we drive on the right. Instead of stopping on red light, we speed on red light. Then what will be the end result of that so-called driving? We'll simply create a disturbance in society, right? So just like with driving, if we don't follow, we might drive a car, but if we're not following the instructions of the authorities, if our driving is not in line with the driving textbooks, then the result of that so-called driving will simply create a disturbance in society. Same thing Rupa Goswami is saying. If we perform so-called bhakti according to our own whims and mental speculations, and that so-called bhakti is not in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then that so-called bhakti is so-called bhakti only. That's not real bhakti. That's simply imitation bhakti. And that imitation bhakti will simply create disturbance in society. So we have to be careful of this. Classical example of this is the sahajiyas that Prabhupada talks about. Like in India, you'll see many sahajiyas. They will think they're on Krishna Prem level or Bhava Bhakti level, and they will think, oh, I'm a gopi, and sometimes even men, they'll be in a male body, but they'll dress themselves as a gopis and say that this is my swarup in spiritual world, I'm a gopi, so that's why I'm acting as a gopi. I heard this story from one devotee. He was mentioning his Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Jai Pataka Maharaj. He was staying in one ashram overnight or something, and one day he was going to one sadhu or someone's room, and he opened that room, and when he opened that room, he saw this one particular Baba or this person. He was like on the floor and just flapping his like this, acting like as if he's like a bird or a chicken or something like that. And Maharaj was like completely astonished, like, what's happening here? And then he just closes the door and goes away. And then later on he finds out that that so-called person, he explains that actually in the spiritual world, I'm a peacock. So I am practicing now, because that's my original swarup in the spiritual. I'm practicing now, this is my swarup. I heard that I'm a peacock in the spiritual world. So like this, there are so many sahajiyas. During Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, it was very, very bad actually. There were so many sahajiyas that whenever people heard about Vaishnavas or Vaishnavis, they had a very bad impression. Because so many sahajiyas, they brought a lot of bad name to the process of bhakti. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he cleared all of that big mess. But even now in India, we will still see. Like even during Prabhupada's time, in Vrindavan, many times people will come and they will, roll on the floor, acting as if they're on Mahabhav platform, and they will cry and roll on the ground, creating a big circus, pretending to be, on the stage of Krishna Prem. So Prabhupada used to tell devotees, if someone does like that, just get a stick and beat them. If he stands up and starts running away, then he's not on Krishna Prem level. He's just pretending or acting. He's actually on Krishna Prem. Even if you beat him, he won't realize anything. He'll just be in complete ecstasy. So like this, there are many sahajas. So what is the end result of all this? Because they're not performing bhakti according to the Shastras, and they're simply inventing their own form of bhakti. The end result is they're just simply creating disturbance in society. So we have to be also careful of this. Many times we invent many things, of our own mental speculation. And as a result of that inventions that we bring out, it will simply create disturbance in our devotional community. Like His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, right? He was here and he was talking about Kirtan standards, right? He gave a whole seminar on Kirtan standards. And he was telling us, this is the Kirtan standards that Prabhupada gave us. And he was mentioning many things that came into Kirtan that Prabhupada didn't establish, just out of speculations, like of different devotees. And like that Maharaj was explaining. And these so-called introductions, to Kirtans, Maharaj was mentioning that it's creating disturbance actually. So we have to be careful that in our practice of bhakti, whatever we do, it should be in line to the Shastras. It should be in line with what Prabhupada said, what our acharyas have said, and we shouldn't invent something new. Okay, let's continue the purport. In the Manusmriti, it is stated that a woman should not be given independence, but should be given protection by her father, husband, and elderly sons. In all circumstances, a woman should remain dependent upon some guardian. Presently, women are given full independence like men. But actually we can see that such independent women are no happier than those women who are placed under guardians. If people follow the injunctions given by the great sages, Shrutis and Smritis, they can actually be happy in both this life and the next. Unfortunately, rascals are manufacturing so many ways and means to be happy. Everyone is inventing so many methods. Consequently, human society has lost the standard ways of life, both materially and spiritually. And as a result, people are bewildered, and there is no peace or happiness in the world. Although they're trying to solve the problems of human society in the United Nations, they are still baffled. Because they do not follow the liberated instructions of the Vedas, they are unhappy. Still so much to speak, but we only have a few minutes left. There's still one more paragraph to the purport. I'll just continue on. Two significant words used in this verse are asmin and amusmin. Asmin means in this life, and amusmin means in the next life. Unfortunately, in this age, even exalted professors and learned men believe that there is no next life and that everything is finished in this life. Since they are rascals and fools, what advice can they give? Still, they are passing as learned scholars and professors. In this verse, the word amusmin is very explicit. It is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will have a profitable next life. Just as a boy is educated in order to become happy later, one should be educated in this life in order to attain an eternal and prosperous life after death. It is therefore essential that people follow what is given in the Shrutis and Smritis to make sure that the human mission is successful. Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone? Yes, Ru. So can you repeat again? Are there any? Okay, so Prabhu is asking question that we're talking about demons and devotees. How Prabhupada mentions the main difference between a demon and devotee is that the demons, they don't apply the Shastra. They might theoretically know what the Shastras say, but they don't apply it. But now in our present day society, even that's not there. Even theoretically, they don't know what the Shastras say. So what to speak of even following? So Prabhu is mentioning the point, is there any other ways we can distinguish demons from devotees? How can we understand who to take guidance from? They might seem like a very learned person, but they might, internally be demoniac. So we study Prabhupada's books, we'll come across so many different qualities, of devotees. So we can judge by that. Like in Gita, so many chapters, Krishna lists out, the qualities of a devotee. Like in 12th chapter of Gita, if you read that, there's many verses which list out qualities of a devotee. He's not envious, he's not proud, he's humble, he's tolerant, he speaks sweetly, he's equal to everyone. So by studying these qualities, observing these qualities that are mentioned in the Shastras, we can immediately tell, And according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, Mahaprabhu, how do we know who is a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi? Mahaprabhu, what did he reply? He said, anyone who chants Hare Krishna even once, he is a devotee. So if anyone is chanting Hare Krishna, we see them as devotees. But obviously, there's different grades of devotees. Not all devotees are on the same platform. Some are new devotees, with certain anathas. Some have been practicing for more years. So yes, we see everyone in the temple as devotees, but at the same time we understand that there is different grades of devotees. There's Kanishta Adhikaris, and there's the Madhyama Adhikaris, then there is Uttama Adhikaris. So Prabhupada says even amongst Vaishnava community, we should discriminate in whom we take association from. Prabhupada mentions this in Bhagavatam. Prabhupada gives the example of a lion. Prabhupada says, yes, Krishna is there in the heart of a lion. Yes, the Jiva is there in the heart of the lion. Yes, that Jiva, he's an eternal servant of Krishna in the spiritual world. But that doesn't mean we go and hug the lion. Do we do like that? No. If we go, oh, my dear lion, in the spiritual world, you must be a great devotee of Radha Gopinath. Krishna is in your heart. Please give me a hug. If we do like that, we'll be finished, we'll be eaten alive. That's it, game over. So Prabhupada gives this example in Bhagavatam actually. So Prabhupada says, just like, yes, Krishna is there in the heart of the lion. Yes, that Jiva in the heart of the lion is a, eternal servant of Krishna in the spiritual world. But still we discriminate and we don't go and hug the lion. In the same way, Prabhupada says, even amongst Vaishnava community, we need to discriminate. And we should seek the association of devotees who are practicing bhakti nicely. Seek the association of devotees who are following the process sincerely and seriously and who are advanced. That way, by taking their association, we can also advance. And other devotees, they might be chanting Hare Krishna, but, because they're new, they might have certain bad habits or anarthas. Then we try to avoid their association. Prabhupada says that's actually wanted. Prabhupada says we should do like that. That's mentioned in Shastra, that even amongst devotees we should discriminate. So it's given that those devotees who are on the same level as us, we make friendship with them. Those who are senior to us, we take their association, we serve them, that way get their blessings and make advancement. Those who are less than us, we be kind and compassionate unto them, and we try to assist them and help them advance in their spiritual life. But if those who are less than us, if they have certain anathas, like, they're very envious, or they talk a lot of prajalpa in the name of, criticizing devotees, bad-mouthing devotees, then we should avoid that association. Just like we would avoid a tiger or a lion, Prabhupada says we should avoid that association. Because if we hear that kind of negative talk from these devotees, then that will negatively influence us. Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Pramanande. Hari Hari Bol.